In this video, we're going to talk about video cameras and what I personally look for when deciding to buy one. If you haven't bought your first video camera yet or looking to buy a new one, this will be particularly helpful. We're going to cover what I consider to be the 14 most important things or features that you should be aware of when shopping around. I wish it was as simple as me telling you what the best camera to buy is, but there isn't one camera or brand that's the best at everything, as they all have their own strengths and weaknesses. What I can promise though is that after this video, you'll have all the information you need to decide for yourself. The first question that you need to ask yourself is, how much do I want to spend? Once you've set a budget, you can narrow down significantly the options available and just begin looking within that price range. If you're wondering how much you should spend on a video camera, the typical range is anywhere between $1,000 to $5,500. At $1,000, you can pick up something maybe a bit older, maybe something secondhand, or potentially just use your phone. The first camera I bought was a Sony a7 III, which came out in 2018, which you can pick up now for about $1,200. It doesn't have a flip out screen, which makes it harder to film yourself. It can't record slow motion in 4K, has a video recording limit of 29 minutes, and only has 8-bit color depth to work with when color grading. I'm going to explain all of these things in more detail shortly, but these are all important considerations. The best-selling crop frame video camera in 2024 was the Fujifilm X-T50, priced at $1,400, and the best-selling full-frame video camera in 2024 was the Sony a7C II, which is priced at $2,200. So if you want to compete with the masses in terms of quality, this is the current cost of entry. I used to work in IT selling hardware and software, and as the general rule of thumb, most companies have a complete tech refresh every 5 years. Every 3 to 5 years, camera manufacturers will release a new version of the camera, so make sure to check when a camera came out before buying one. I wouldn't want you to buy a brand new camera just for the next version to come out the following week. It's worth noting that camera bodies depreciate a lot in value when their successor is released, so this could either be an opportunity to get a better deal on the older model or buy the new improved version instead. When you buy a camera, you're not only investing in something that can record a video or take a picture, you're investing in a whole ecosystem. It's kind of like buying a games console. When you buy a games console, you're limited to the controllers, accessories, and in some cases, the games that you can play on that console. The same applies with cameras and their lenses. Each manufacturer has their own type of lens mount, which means you can't just take any lens and attach it to any camera. Lenses built by the manufacturer are built with more precision and functionality. In contrast, you could attach a third-party lens to a camera using an adapter or purchasing the lens with the correct mount for the camera you're attaching it to, but the lens won't necessarily be able to take advantage of the camera's autofocus or other controls. It's important to understand which lenses are available for each camera, because lenses are the next big purchase that you'll make. You also don't want to invest in glass that you don't intend to keep for a long time. For example, if you decided to go for a cheaper camera right now that has a crop sensor and therefore buy the corresponding crop sensor lenses, which are also cheaper, when you eventually decide to upgrade your camera to one with a full frame sensor, you will have to buy all new full frame lenses. Your sensor is the part of the camera that captures light and converts it into an image. Full frame is the largest sensor size that can be found on a digital camera, and you'll find it on the Sony a7C II, my old a7 III, my a7S III, and my Sony FX III. You'll also find it on the Canon R6, Canon R5, Canon 5D Mark IV, and the Blackmagic 6K Pro. APS-C sensors, sometimes referred to as crop sensors, are a popular sensor size that you'll find in cheaper cameras. Drones, phones, and GoPros will have even smaller sensors, usually around 1 inch to half an inch. Basically, when it comes to sensor size, bigger is better. Bigger sensors perform better in low light, give you more shallow depth of field, and each pixel is larger and less compressed, giving higher quality images. As I mentioned, sensor size will also determine what lens you can buy and what crop factor you would have to take into consideration. For example, here's a photo taken in a full frame camera with a full frame 12mm lens. It produces what's expected, a 12mm image. If we change the camera to one with a crop sensor, that 12mm will become the equivalent of a 20mm. This is because the sensor has a 1.6 times crop. This crop will affect any full frame lens you use in the same way. You might be thinking, well, I'll just buy crop sensor lenses to avoid this problem, which would make sense, but as I mentioned earlier, if you upgrade to a full frame camera in the future, you can't use crop sensor lenses on full frame cameras. This is because it creates darkened edges around your images. The industry standard for resolution is currently 4K, with 1080p being usable but not ideal to shoot in, especially if you want to crop during the edit. Some new cameras offer 6K and 8K resolution, but to be honest, it's mostly overkill for video creators. The only way you'd be able to tell the difference between a 4K resolution image and an 8K resolution image is if you watch them on a cinema-sized screen. When researching cameras, check for both resolution and frame rate, as they usually correlate with each other. For example, 4K at 50 frames per second means the camera captures 50 images per second at 4K quality. Higher frame rates allow for better slow motion footage, with 50 frames per second being the standard 2x slow motion or 50% speed. Typically there's a trade-off. The camera might shoot in 25 or 30 frames per second at 4K, but at 50 or 100 frames per second can only handle 1080p. I would try to aim for a camera that can at least shoot at 4K at 50 frames per second. The new iPhone 16 Pro can shoot 4K at 120 frames per second, which is impressive, but the smaller sensor means you do not get the same image quality. Simply put, 4K resolution represents how many pixels make up the image. 4K is just over 4,000 pixels wide and 2,160 pixels tall, or the opposite way around if you shoot vertically. If you took just one pixel from the 4K resolution of an iPhone and put it next to the 4K resolution of a full frame camera, the full frame camera's pixel would be about 194.12% larger. Sensor size significantly affects performance in low light. Generally, larger sensors perform better. However, some cameras excel in denoising technology. A camera's ISO rating indicates its low light capability. Higher ISO capability usually means less noise overall. If a camera features dual native ISO, it operates better at a higher ISO with reduced noise. Take both my Sony a7S III and FX3 for example. They are well renowned for their low light performance. They have dual native ISO of 640 and 12,800. Usually when increasing ISO, an image will gradually get noisier and fall apart. But with these cameras, when you reach 12,800 ISO, it cleans up the noise, resulting in a much cleaner image, allowing you to film in darker environments. Cinema cameras like Blackmagic or Red are typically optimized for well-lit environments, so they perform really badly in low light. I once got hired to shoot a wedding alongside someone who thought having the most expensive camera would get the best results. They decided to shoot on a Red camera, bearing in mind we were in the French Alps, the sun had gone down, and we were in a dark church. This meant their footage was mostly completely unusable. If low light shooting is crucial for you, then Sony is your best bet. Different camera brands produce varying color outputs. Canon's color science is different to Sony's color science, and so on. Canon cameras are known for their true to life colors straight from the camera, which is a big reason why a lot of videographers and photographers use them. Sony's colors, especially for skin tones and greens, tend to look less natural and require a bit more color grading knowledge to fix. While Canon excels in accurate colors without adjustments, imperfect color science can be mitigated in the editing room if the camera has enough color depth. Lower end cameras typically have 8-bit color depth, just like my first camera, the Sony a7 III, which only displays 256 colors at a time. I advise against shooting in log picture profile with an 8-bit camera, as it limits your ability to recover the colors in post. As you move up in price, many cameras offer 10-bit log profiles, allowing for 1024 colors, providing more control in post-production. High-end cameras can even shoot at 12-bit RAW, displaying 4096 colors, which offers nearly unlimited control over color and exposure. While I used to shoot in 8-bit, I now shoot in 10-bit, which it tends to be the sweet spot for me. As long as I've exposed the image correctly, I retain plenty of information and my file sizes are easy to manage. This is your camera's way of processing and storing files. The codec determines how the video data is compressed and encoded, while the bitrate controls the amount of data processed per second. Most cameras don't shoot in RAW format, so they compress the files to manage size and memory space. The least compressed codecs, such as ProRes or RAW, provide the highest quality, but are significantly larger in file size. The ideal scenario here is to find a codec that isn't too compressed, but also doesn't produce a file that's so big that it's difficult to manage from a storage or editing perspective. For instance, the a7S III offers options like HS, which is heavily compressed for smaller files and more challenging to edit, SI, which is less compressed, offering better quality and smoother playback, and S, which basically strikes a balance somewhere in the middle. Similarly, Canon's options include IPB, which is more compressed and harder to work with, and All-I, which is less compressed and easier to edit. When choosing a camera, the best thing to do is prioritize those with less compressed codecs for better quality and editing flexibility. I mention this because some low-end cameras lack high quality options and only provide more compressed codecs. Bitrate is usually displayed next to the codec settings. Some models allow you to change the bitrate yourself. Always aim for the highest bitrate available. The higher the dynamic range, the more room there is to capture details in both highlights and the shadows. Lower end cameras usually have poorer dynamic range, resulting in noisy dark shadows and blown out highlights. Low dynamic range also doesn't allow for much error if you under or overexpose your images. For context, our eyes can only see about 21 stops of dynamic range. My Sony FX3 has 15 stops of dynamic range, whilst lower end cameras typically have about 11 or 12 stops. It's probably no surprise, but most new cameras have the best autofocus technology because it's most up to date. Canon and Sony are particularly good. I shoot a lot of weddings on my own, and I shoot a lot of videos by myself, so autofocus is a must for me. The latest Canon models offer some of the best autofocus available. Sony is very close behind, with the competitive autofocus catching up quickly. Interestingly, Sony's lower end cameras have better autofocus than Canon's lower end cameras because Canon tends to limit their features in their cheaper models. Camera brands like Red and Blackmagic struggle in this area. This is because they are cinema cameras that are tailored more toward filming with a crew, where someone would typically pull focus manually. In-body stabilization, or IBIS for short, is a feature cameras have to make handheld footage look less shaky. IBIS does not replace a gimbal though, as gimbals allow you to perform much bigger movements smoothly. When it does come in handy is if you're shooting handheld or have mounted your camera to something that's moving. It removes those micro jitters you would usually otherwise see in the footage, which gives it a more unprofessional look. You can of course add stabilization to your footage instead during the editing process. However, without IBIS, shaky footage can sometimes be impossible to fix. The feature is becoming common in cameras, however cinema cameras like Red and Blackmagic typically don't have IBIS either. Most mid-tier cameras from Canon, Sony and Panasonic do provide decent stabilization. Many low-end and older cameras like my A7 III have a 29-minute recording limit when filming in 4K. This can be a challenge for long shoots like podcast, wedding speeches, or even this type of video that I'm making now. While newer cameras are starting to lift this limit, it's important to check that the camera you choose doesn't have this restriction if you need longer recording times. Another feature to consider is dual recording. This allows you to record to 2 separate SD cards simultaneously for redundancy. Personally, I've never experienced a card failure in my 6 years of shooting, which is probably a symptom of me always buying high quality SD cards, but if you want to play it safe, having dual recording capability can be a valuable feature. Sony camera display screens are quite small. This can sometimes make it hard to see if you've grabbed focus correctly or if you've nailed the exposure. I do usually use a separate monitor if I'm filming a paid project, but if you're just filming yourself, you probably don't need one. Most new cameras come with a flip out screen, allowing you to monitor yourself while filming, or adjust the angle for low or high shots. However, some older models from Blackmagic and Sony, as well as certain Canon cameras, lack this feature. If you often film yourself like I do, a flip out screen is essential. Reliability includes factors like weather sealing, overheating, and build quality. A camera packed with features won't be beneficial if it overheats after 30 minutes or breaks easily. Generally, low-end cameras struggle in these areas, while the really high-end cameras, like the cinema cameras, may not be weather sealed. Cameras like the R6, R5, A7S III and A7 IV usually offer good weather sealing and solid build quality, though they can sometimes overheat. I purchased my FX3 because it has an internal fan that mitigates against this. That's because I rely on that camera when filming live by myself. If I hit that record button, I need it to finish the job. In general, Sony cameras tend to have fewer overheating issues compared to Canon. Ultimately, it depends on the specific model, so be sure to check online tests before making a purchase. You also really want to be able to rely on the battery of your camera. Having to change battery every hour when you're filming can be really disruptive. The smaller the camera, the smaller the battery, and that will usually result in you needing to buy more batteries to get the same amount of runtime. My advice is, if you can, save up a little bit more money and get a mid-range camera and have confidence in both reliability and the battery life. The final thing I look for when buying a camera is what accessories are available for it. I'm talking about camera cages, memory cards, wireless microphones, etc. Some cameras come with additional top handles like the FX3, which were made by the manufacturer, which enables you to plug in XLR cables directly into the camera. That's how I'm recording the audio in this video. The XLR cable here is going up here, down there, straight into the camera, which means it's capturing the best quality. I also check compatibility for any apps I intend on using. For example, there are some great apps that allow you to use your phone as a wireless monitor for your camera. This way you can set up your shot, adjust all your settings remotely. Super helpful when filming alone. And now you know exactly what to look for when buying a video camera. If you're buying one soon, I'm excited for you. Enjoy the process, have fun with it, and if you have any questions, you know who to ask.